Hello, friends, and welcome to Elements and Alchemy, the podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Johnson, sharing the astrological, lunar, and tarot influences for the week ahead of February 1st through February 8th, 2019. I want to start by welcoming everyone to my first official weekly podcast. I'm super excited to share this passion of mine with all of you, and before we get started, I want to just formally introduce myself and share a little bit about me and my journey and how I approach this work. So for starters, I am an intuitive astrologer, tarot reader, and body worker based in Philly. I've been studying astrology for 19 years, tarot for 18, and been a body worker for nearly 16. I'm a Scorpio sun, Cancer moon, Aries rising, and my birthday is actually on Halloween. And I do want to say that I'm not a fan. I love the day. It's not that I don't love the day. It's just that I don't like how our culture celebrates the day. So I'm more of a purist and a traditionalist. Like, I would like to go within and be quiet and also have my day be, just special for, my closest people in me. And it's just a lot of ruckus and a lot of distraction, I think, that comes with that day. But that being said, I am a lover of thresholds. I am a lover of the in-between spaces. Like, Halloween is the day when the veil between, our reality and other worlds is at its thinnest. And that's literally where I am most of the time, probably in that, that threshold kind of twilighty time. That's where I am. And I've kind of been there my whole life. I think, definitely when I was little, I definitely remember being there a lot when I was a little girl. And if you asked me then, and even I think if you ask me now, I think I have more of an idea now, but definitely if you asked me then, I was like, I don't really know where I go. I just not here. And, and it just didn't occur to me that I wasn't where I should have been. I don't know. But anyway, what I do remember though is going to sleep at night and closing my eyes, after getting tucked in, and my brother and I would, goof off and talk a little bit because we shared a room when I was little. And I would close my eyes, and when I closed my eyes, I would immediately see stars. It was just immediate. I did not have to conjure it. I did not have to call it. The stars would just come. They would be in my mind's eye, and it would be like endless amounts of stars in space, all different colors and sizes and twinkling, and just really, really beautiful. And I would fall asleep imagining myself floating through space with all of these stars. And one day, obviously, it didn't happen anymore. It just stopped, and I didn't notice that it stopped because you're a kid and you don't notice those things. Things change so rapidly when you're a child, and some things are more traumatic than others, but how I put myself to sleep, it wasn't a traumatic thing. I think I just started falling asleep and not going into deep space in order to do it. And so I didn't really notice. And I would say that was probably around the time that I think, and this happens to all children, all people, it's there are astrological markers in our chart for, when things shift for us. I think that we come here, as tiny beings who are very much connected to our own life stream, connected to our purpose, connected to what it is that we need to do. I think that's why we can't talk, because nobody else is really supposed to know that. But, I think that somewhere in our consciousness, as, when we get here and we're, still so connected to the other side of life, I think that we do know those things. And I think that, we are in our purest essence in those ways. And, as we start to grow, obviously, we take on other influences, and we all come here with something to work out. So those things start to manifest. And I think that by age 7, when we have our first Saturn square, that's the astrological marker, we kind of lose something or forget a little bit, or, something shifts in us, and we begin to start along the path of forgetting, while we are also simultaneously starting along the path of remembering. So it's like, it's this weird thing. Like, we begin the path of forgetting some of our magic. We begin the path of forgetting some of why we came here. We begin the path of forgetting. And it's interesting, and and we all kind of do it, and everybody does it to varying degrees. Some of us forget a lot, some of us forget a little, some of us, it's a traumatic thing, some of us don't even notice that it's happened, but we begin that process and we forget to remember. Basically, like, we lose ourselves to find ourselves, and that's kind of how I view life. Like, there is a part of ourselves that we essentially know, and we essentially, like, it's our essence, it's who we are, it's us in our purest form, like, without ego, without, other people, without, having to conform, and, whatever it is that we do to be in the world, there is an essence of who we are, and that comes through, and then we kind of have to lose it, like, by having to, just be in the world and function and assimilate and look normal. Like, we lose those parts of ourselves that are our magic, because we have to divert our energy into being out and seen and, functioning and going to school and making friends and, doing all the things that we do in life. Like, we have to divert that energy into something else. And so we lose pieces of ourselves doing that. And as we grow, I think that we end up finding those pieces again. And the other part to this story is that I did forget. I completely forgot that that's how I fell asleep at night as a child. And one day, I would say about a year and a half ago, I was coming to a point in my own life where I had to actively acknowledge that astrology and tarot are things that I actually do in real life, that they're my gifts. I had to acknowledge that this is something that I need to share with other people. Because it was kind of like, oh yeah, well, don't look at that. Like, they were kind of my shame, like, yeah, I'm over here in outer space. We're not going to talk about we're not going to talk about what I'm really thinking about, because I'm thinking about planets and stars and how they all interconnect and the symbolism of our lives and all this stuff. And nobody really wants to hear about that. Like, it was kind of my shame. It was really kind of my shame. And like, I didn't want to share this with anybody, but then I really, really had to start reckoning with myself. I'm like, this is what you're passionate about. This is how your mind works. This is how you connect things. This is the language that you speak. This is how your soul resonates. Maybe you should try to share it. And I'm like, no, nobody wants to hear that. Like, they want to know about this thing I'm doing over here, because this is very important. And it wasn't, I was coming to grips with the fact that, okay, like, maybe this is something that I do need to share with people. Maybe this is something that would be beneficial. Like, I don't know, but it's who I am, and I have to be who I am. I have to share it. So, okay. And it was around that time that I was really tired, and I got in bed and I closed my eyes, and the stars came back. And I was half asleep, but I kind of like, I couldn't believe it, because I'm like, oh my gosh. And I felt so much peace and just joy, because it was something that I hadn't seen in over 30 years. I mean, like, well over 30 years. I had not seen that part of me. I hadn't seen the stars. And it was a very poignant moment, because it was almost like the stars were like, it was almost like that part of me was coming back to me and saying, like, yes, you are back. You never really lost it. You just had to think that you lost it. You had to lose it so that you could remember it in a different way. It's like, I couldn't float in space in that way anymore. I had to kind of lose that and drop it in order for that to evolve into what I now currently do, which is like real astrology. And it's so that I can give this gift and share it with the world and with all of you, to help other people to evolve and empower themselves and make themselves more aware. Like, it was really like a full circle moment for me of like, oh, I'm having this like major crisis of like, shame around this thing that I do. And the universe is like, no, like, this is you. This is who you are. Like, you are in space, and that's okay. And my family is probably really, really going to like crack up at this podcast when they listen to it, because they used to tell me I was in outer space all the time. They're like, you are so spaced out. Like, where do you go? And like, my parents used to call me a space cadet. And you know what? I am a space cadet in the best way. Like, I commune with planets, and I listen to stars, and I know their cycles, and that's what I do. And that's what resonates with my soul. So I'm really excited that, that happened, and it has not happened since. It was like, that was just kind of like a little, here you are, you did the job, you mastered the thing, and now go do something with it. So this is what I'm doing with it. That's part of how I see life. We all come here with gifts. We all come here with something, and we have to allow those things to evolve. We have to allow those things to evolve. We have to allow ourselves to evolve. And those gifts and things, sometimes we're holding on to them so tight in one way. Like, for me, that was a shameful thing to be in space like that. Like, what are you doing there? Like, wherever it is you go, get out, you have things to do. And so, like, I started doing the things. And it wasn't that anybody in my family was necessarily, poo-pooing me or like, shaming me for it. It was just it was like a running joke. It's like, where do you go? Because it was like, I would very obviously do that. And they are actually my staunchest supporters, honest to God, in this moment. But, I just carried that shame with me from some other time, some other place. And it was like, oh, well, you can't do that. You have to like go out there and like do the things and, function, look normal. And, so that's that story. But, I feel like we all have that. We all have that. We all have that awareness when we're here. We all have that essence. We all are connected to that life stream, and something happens and we kind of lose it. And then we have to go on that journey to find it. And that we're all spiritual. We're all spiritual beings having a physical existence. Like, that's a very, it's a quote. Lots of people say it, but I truly, truly believe that. And what I do want to add to that quote is it's just a matter of awareness. It is literally just a matter of whether you're aware or not of the journey that you're on. And because we're all here, like, no one is any more spiritual than anyone else. It's just, are you aware of what you're doing? Are you aware of where your soul wants to go? Are you aware of how you want to be? Are you aware of owning who you are? Are you aware of those things? And that's the awareness of, that's the difference between being aware in your life and not aware in your life. It's just, are you following a track that's prescribed for you, or are you looking elsewhere to see what expands you and what feeds your soul, what's going to help you grow? Or are you kind of just like sleeping through your life and following a prescribed set of things, or not like just whatever you think you should do instead of whatever you feel or know you should do? It's the difference between awareness. Like, no one's life is more spiritual. Religion does not make you spiritual. Yoga does not make you spiritual. This does not make you spiritual. It's literally like, we are all spiritual, and it's just what we decide to do. Do we allow that spirit to open up and guide us in our lives, or do we kind of make it take a back seat to our ego needs? And I don't mean ego needs in the sense of like, in the sense of big ego, I need to be seen. Like, that is an ego. That is a manifestation of a wounded ego. But a less talked about manifestation of a wounded ego are just folks that toe the line because they're too afraid of change. They're too afraid of the ramifications of being seen, the ramifications of following their heart, the ramifications of letting people down because of that, and, just falling out of line, because in some place that equates to injury to them. It equates to injury in their souls, and their ego's like, no, you're not moving. You are not moving. Like, I don't care how terrible this might feel right now, but it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't. And that's kind of where people live their lives. And I think most people kind of live in that space of just like, this is what it is. I'm not going to ask any questions. I'm going to toe the line. And as things come, I'll deal with it, but we're basically going to stay on this track. And when you're living from like when you're kind of living from that place of your heart and your soul and your higher self all trying to line up and have your ego take a back seat, which is not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing. I don't want to talk about that. Like, it's like, oh yeah, I know how to do that. No, I come up against myself all the time, and it's a push and it's a shove, and I don't want to do things because I'm comfortable, or I don't want to do things because they're scary and they're hard, and it means sometimes I gotta flip shit and wreck stuff and upend things, and people don't understand why, and it's like that sometimes, but it's all for a greater good and for greater learning. And I think that life gives us all circumstances, because life wants us all to be happy. Life wants us all to be joyful. Life wants us all to be peaceful. Life wants us all to be true to who we are. And so life gives us circumstances and situations to kind of, set the stage for us to choose to live with more awareness. So it's always a choice. We have free will. It's always a choice to live with that awareness. And even when you decide to start to open your eyes, because it's not like a ping, like all of a sudden my eyes are open, like, no, like you got to peel back that sleep crust. It's a lot of it. You got to peel it back, and like you see a little bit and you see a little bit more and you see a little bit more. And even in that, like, you have choices about where to stay in that, and do you keep moving forward? But once you begin to open your eyes, you can't close them again. That's the thing. So you can either kind of stay in one spot and continue to like kind of swirl around in that, or you can continue moving on. The universe always gives choices. And by the universe, I really mean us, ourselves as creator. We tend to put God and, we tend to put God outside of ourselves. And I'm not saying that there is not a higher intelligence holding all of this together and orchestrating this, but what I am saying is that we have the power to co-create our own lives, and things come up for us to ask us to do that, in the way that is most beneficial to us and everyone around us, because when we are happy, that happiness naturally extends to everyone around us. So even if you feel really comfortable, if you're not happy there, then that discontent is not going to, it's going to bubble out into other areas. So it's always make sure that you are happy and aligned with what's true for you, and then the rest of your life will also line up in that way as well. So that is basically kind of my it's kind of my story, a little bit of my story, and I'm sure you'll hear more as these podcasts go on, but that's kind of my story, and just kind of where I am and how I've gotten to be here. There's it's been over 20 years of me being in this space of like trying to be more aware and trying to live more from my heart, and letting go of the control that I think I have by like trying to do things the way that everybody else is doing them, instead of doing the things that I want to do in the way that I need to do them for me, so that I am fulfilled and happy, and then that then spreads to everyone around me. So that being said, that's kind of my backstory and, kind of how I got to be sitting here in my living room doing this podcast for you all now. Before we get started on this week's upcoming astro, I do want to just say a couple of other things. I'm incredibly sarcastic. So sometimes, I really like irony and like all that kind of stuff. So that will sometimes come out in my interpretations. I curse a lot. I really like the F-bomb. It's just who I am. My second word out of my mouth after I said daddy was shit. So, and my parents didn't curse, so they really didn't understand where this came from. So that's who I am. And I also like make sometimes musical and cartoon references. They're kind of my things that I really enjoy. So periodically one of those will slip in. If you're down with it, cool. That would, like if you recognize something, give me a shout. That always makes me feel nice to know that there are others that like the things that I like. Let me see what else. As far as the astrology itself, I do not give predictive kinds of things. As we just seen, like I just spoke about, my goal is to empower people to look within and to help translate the energies that are coming to us from the cosmos. Because those energies do influence us. They influence how we think, how we feel, and, they influence the decisions, they influence our circumstances. So I want to just be a translator of that for folks. That being said, within that, there is, we all have a natal chart, and that's kind of our natal blueprint of how things, how we operate and our potentials and our weaknesses and our strengths and all that good stuff. And then as we grow and the planets move and shift, our natal charts get, they get activated in certain ways, and that becomes a story. That becomes like the pieces and the bits of our story that help us to evolve and help us to grow. So that's a cycle. And then we also have collective cycles where we're all dealing with this particular energy in this particular way because of the particular configurations that are in the sky and coming down to earth in those energies. So then there's collective cycles, and there are cycles even beyond that, but we're just going to kind of stick with the collective. That's pretty much where the collective meets the personal is the astrology that I do. And it's to help, like I said, empower folks, help people become more aware of their options and what's happening potentially with them and for them, and how to kind of co-create and use these energies for their highest good. That's my story. That's my astrology. That's what these readings are for. If you would like a private reading, if you like what you hear and you want a private reading, I will be providing that information at the end. And with that, let's get started. So today is Friday, February 1st, 2019, and we are coming up on a new moon on Monday, new moon in Aquarius on Monday. And this weekend, the 3 days before any new moon, we have a dark moon. It's when there's no moon visible in the sky. So starting today is day 1 of the dark moon, Saturday is day 2, Sunday is day 3, and then we have the new moon Monday at 4:30 in the afternoon Eastern time. So what happens during dark moon times, and I'm saying this because this is kind of an important thing to know, is that dark moon times it's another threshold period. I'm big on thresholds after you just heard. So dark moon times are a threshold period, and it's a threshold of going within and kind of being with our emotions and our feelings, diving into our subconscious and seeing what's there we've just got a ping over the week. We had a third quarter square. The squares of the moon kind of activate and give us a rub and give us like an emotional rub. It's like emotional intelligence about what we need to change for the coming cycle. This particular new moon is wrapping up a bajillion cycles, and so many of them I can't even begin to talk about in this particular episode because I'm trying to keep it down to an hour. But it's wrapping up the previous lunar cycle, which was from the Capricorn new moon at the beginning of the year and the lunar eclipse that just happened 2 weeks ago. So it's wrapping up that cycle. It's wrapping up the Leo Aquarius, the eclipses on the Leo Aquarius axis that we've had for the last 2 years. It's wrapping up the Uranus-Pluto square time that was activated between 2012 to 2016. They were like coming into aspect. And then it's also closing out. There is another thing that I cannot seem to think of right now, but I will. Within that, it's closing out Uranus's time in Aries for the last almost 9 years, as well as Chiron's time in Pisces for the last 9 years. So this is a big, big moment. We're like literally at a precipice at this particular time. And today, like I said, we're going into that dark moon time. So any of the aspects that I'm giving for this weekend, please, please, please take the time to understand that they may not be like these big boom external processes. It might be something that it's a lot of things that may get tripped internally for you. Take time to be with yourself, take time to just be quiet, take time to listen, take time to tune in. If people aren't giving you that, take it. If people are, just take your time, like go out under the stars, go do whatever it is that your moon, because your moon says like how you process and how you need to be with your emotions. Take time to go and do what feeds your soul. Okay, do that and you'll have the answers and things that you need. So that being said, we have a dark moon that will be in Capricorn. And as the moon is moving through Capricorn, it's tripping the eclipse point from earlier this year, which was at 15 degrees Capricorn, where Saturn currently is right now. So it's tripping that. It's kind of giving us our emotional farewell, because that's where the moon was at the start. It was a new moon. It was a new moon eclipse, so it was a solar eclipse, and in Capricorn at the beginning of January, and the sun and the moon were together. And the moon was there at 15 degrees, and it's made an entire turn around the entire, zodiac in the last 30 days or 28 days to come back to that space, come back to that point, because in that time we've had these eclipses and we've had things come up, and it's time to wrap up that cycle. So the moon is moving through Capricorn and wrapping up the last month and gaining information. It's like Saturn is like, okay, it's a level of emotional stability I feel like we're getting right now. It's like we kind of maybe got a little destabilized at the beginning of the year because, a shift needed to happen with that eclipse, and we kind of destabilized a little bit. And over the course of the last month and, the lunar eclipse, I feel like there was a lot of power being given back to us. Like we were shown a lot of ways that we deny or don't accept or allow others to take our power, where we were shown a lot of where we're disempowered, I believe, over this past moon cycle. And it's like we're coming to this point where the moon is kind of getting that emotional power back. And then as the moon moves on from Saturn in the middle of Capricorn, and then we'll move to the South Node, which is the nodes of evolution. It's a continuum. They always are along a particular axis. Right now, they're along the Capricorn Cancer axis. And that's the axis of security, like how we feel secure, how we secure our place in the world. So the South Node is in Capricorn, and that's our past. The South Node is the past. It has a lot of weight. It has a lot of gravity because there's usually karma there. But it also has gifts. It has gifts of things that we know how to do, things that we may have forgotten, things that we may overuse, things that we may just kind of like fall back on, but it has gifts and things that we also need to move away from. The North Node, which is in Cancer right now, is asking us who and what gives us security, and to move away from giving our power to things that give us false security. That's what it's asking us to do right now. So as the moon moves up to the South Node in Capricorn, after meeting with Saturn, we're going to be, the energy is that we're going to be getting not just that emotional stability, but there's an emotional power. There's an emotional power to be our own sustenance. There's an emotional power to give ourselves the security that we need and to not settle for to not settle for giving away ourselves and our power and denying our true needs for a false sense of security. So that's kind of the moon's trajectory this weekend. And then the moon will go into Aquarius sometime Sunday, and will stay there until the new moon on Monday. Or not until, but through the new moon on Monday. And when the moon moves into Aquarius on Sunday, it's gonna be like, we'll go from having that to then like, it's like this expanded kind of emotional detachment where we get to kind of like emotionally back up for a minute and look at everything. So we're going to get like this moment of like, we're getting this power back. We're getting this power, like this emotional power, this emotional stability back to do what we need to do. And then we actually have to look at what we have to do. So that's the dark moon. And there are going to be other influences coming in to affect these feelings. So I just want to kind of start with the dark moon, and then we're going to move to Pluto square Mars today. And this aspect can be, it can bring a level of violence. I don't really foresee that. What I do feel is that, because I feel like as each of these planets has been passing over the South Node, it's been uncomfortable, and Mars has been like squaring different planets, like Mars squared Saturn right after the lunar eclipse a couple weeks ago. And there's a level of awareness that we need to come to about, like I said, giving our power away. Mars in Aries is the will of the individual to act, and Pluto in Capricorn is the institutional structures that we give our power to in lieu of our own power. So Pluto's tearing down those structures so that we can actually all stand in our own power. Capricorn is personal power. So Pluto's knocking down any structures that are actually taking our personal power away. And with Pluto squaring Mars, I feel like there is a rub. There's definitely a rub happening around like where we might be giving our power away, where we're giving away our power to act in our own best interest. And if we have been doing work and are willing to see where we've been doing that, this could be a time where we actually get that power back. Like, it could be a gift. It's a gift of getting that power back, instead of it having to be like this hard, harsh aspect of like fighting and like, just Pluto and Mars actually work together and rule Scorpio together. Pluto is the higher octave of Mars. So it's just deep desire and deep passion to get something done. Pluto rules evolution. Pluto wants to evolve by any means necessary. So if that means that something has to get torn completely down, that's what happens. But it will always rebuild. Mars, when acting from a place of higher will, doesn't just go willy-nilly. Like, we don't have cultural standards for proper use of will. Like, we live in a patriarchal society that is driven by war and violence. So we don't see how will is used for good. And most of us, through all of these structures of the patriarchy, have our will kind of subdued. So we go along with things that we don't really agree with. And this is Pluto telling Mars, like, okay, here's that power to choose. Here's the power to use your will to build what you want. Here's your gift. So that's how I'm feeling it. Like I said, it could play out in some less evolved ways with less evolved situations. But, if we've all been doing our work, because we've all been taken through paces, and as this is the end of a lot of huge cycles, what I am feeling is that there is a sense of this is a reclaiming of power for Mars, especially after Mars's lengthy retrograde last year, to align our will to act with what is true for us. This is that proving moment of, if you have done that work, you get this power back. And I also want to say too that sometimes I think it might look scary to people. And I think that that's where the rub of the square is coming in, is that it might look really frightening to people, because a lot of times when we have like these deep transformations and things have been lost or taken away or whatever, and we've given our power away, we don't recognize it when it comes back to us. We don't recognize it as ours. And because it's, we have historical trauma around having our wills basically violently beaten out of us as human beings by our power structures, having our power handed back to us, it might not be recognizable to us, and it might actually frighten us to take it. So the invitation is to take your power back. Even if it feels like it's yours, it is. Take it back. It's okay. Like, get to know it. Embrace it. You're going to need it. So moving on, Saturday, February 2nd, Venus is going to trine. And trine is a easy flowing energy. It's a 120-degree aspect. It's one side of a triangle. And it's a very flowing, easy energetic exchange between Venus in Sagittarius and Uranus in Aries. Aries, once again, is the sign of the individual spark leaving the collective dream that is Pisces. This is like the individual bursting out of that, ready to move with a will of its own. That's Aries. Sagittarius is the sign of expanded thinking, expanded being, expanded truth, higher learning, natural law, anything that's going to expand your world, travel, religion, like anything like that. That's what Sagittarius rules. So what we have is like this expanded, it's Venus wants to expand. Venus is the archetype of relating and values. So it's like how we relate with what we value and how we relate to it and with it, and how we attract it. So what we value, how we attract it, and then how we relate to it. That's what Venus rules. Venus in Sagittarius values freedom. Venus in Sagittarius values expansion. Venus in Sagittarius values anything that wants to do that. Aries and Sagittarius are both fire signs, so they're both valuing, especially Uranus and Aries, valuing freedom. They want to be free. So this aspect is kind of breaking loose. Since it's an easy flow, it's breaking loose and breaking away any kind of any barriers that we might have to claiming, and any barriers that we might have to attracting what is expansive for us, attracting what will make our beings expand and be more free. Anything that's blocking that, Venus and Uranus is busting the chains on that. So what's then going to happen is that tomorrow, after Venus has this expansive aspect with Uranus, where it's like, I'm free, I am ready to attract what it is that I want. And Uranus is like, yes, I know what I value, and I'm ready to go out and get that. Venus then moves into Capricorn tomorrow. And when Venus moves into Capricorn, in order to keep growing, we have to expand and contract, expand and contract, expand and contract, expand and contract. So Venus is having this really expansive moment because Sagittarius is about expansion, ruled by Jupiter, and then moves into Capricorn tomorrow. And Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and Saturn is contraction. So Venus is going to contract a bit, but not in the same sense of like, oh my gosh, I'm scared. Venus is going to contract because it's like, oh, wait a minute. If I want to expand enough and to attract what I need to keep expanding, to attract what I need to keep me happy and joyful, and to attract what I value and the relationships that I want to cultivate that give me freedom, how do I do that? So Venus is going to like contract a bit to get down to brass tacks about how to make this work, how to make this dream of expansion and attracting relationships that are expansive and mind opening and soul opening and true. Sagittarius rules truth and your higher self. So that right there, that's what Venus is looking for. Venus is looking for what's true, what's real. In Capricorn, looking for what's real. Capricorn is make it real. Let's build it. Let's make it into something. Let's make it into something real. So that's what Venus is going to be doing after coming off of this trine with Uranus in Aries. It's okay. How do I make this real? How do I make this happen? How do I build this? So we might feel I don't want to say like contracted, but it's going to be like kind of like, okay, and reality. How do we make this real? At the same time, before Venus moves into Capricorn though, and this is, before Venus makes that move, Venus is going to square, which is a frictional aspect once again, Chiron. And Chiron is at the last degree of Pisces. Chiron is what they call the wounded healer. And Chiron is all about the wounding of our souls that we have to transcend. We cannot heal those wounds. They contain our gifts. The wounds contain our gifts, but there is healing in that. Chiron was a centaur who was half mortal and half immortal. And basically what happened was he was shot in the leg with a poison arrow, and because he was immortal, he could not die. So he was just in constant pain with this wound that never went away. And finally, like, Zeus took pity on him. This is like the totally abbreviated version of the story, by the way. Zeus took pity on him and allowed him to change places with Prometheus, who was being punished eternally for stealing the god's fire and giving it to people, allowed him to die. And he became the constellation Sagittarius. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So Chiron is about the higher truth of uniting our natures, of divinity and humanness. Like we are mortal and immortal. We're these dual-natured beings. Chiron is about that truth and transcending the pain of that disconnection that we feel from our more divine parts, or even from our more, regular human parts. So Chiron's journey through Pisces these last almost 10 years has really been about how do we heal the wound of separation? And right now, I feel like this square is making the square between Venus and Sagittarius and this wound, and between Chiron and Pisces is, I don't believe that it's a reactivation of the wound, because once again, we're closing out a cycle. I don't think it's a reactivation of the wound. I think it is a revisiting and a closure of this wound of being separate from what we need to expand, of being separate from what we value, being separate from what we love, being separate from what we want to relate to that gives us freedom. That's my take on it. Like, if, in an evolutionary standpoint, we are to revisit this, close it, bless it, and move on. That's what this is about now. It's about moving on past that wound now, because we're done. We are allowed to build and expand. That's why Venus is going to hit that 0 degree Capricorn right after this, right after that square. Venus is moving to Capricorn, where it's like, okay, you closed it up. Like you no longer have to feel that pain. We have transcended that pain of being separate from what expands us, being separate from what we love that gives us freedom, being separate from what we love that opens our minds. We're done with that now. Now we get to build a new dream. We get to build a new thing. Mercury sextile Jupiter tomorrow as well. Tomorrow is kind of a busy day in this dark moon time. Mercury sextile Jupiter is going to be a sextile is an aspect that it's an opportunity. You don't necessarily, like, it's not like a trine where it's just happening and there's nothing you can do about it. It's not like a square where it's happening, but you can feel it. And it's not like a conjunction where the energies are so fused that it's just happening and whether you want it to or not. A sextile, you will be aware of the opportunity. But I call it the free will aspect because you have to go and do it. You have to do it. You have to do something with it. So Jupiter, being in its home sign of Sagittarius, is being expansive, and Jupiter's a teacher. Jupiter teaches through expansion. Jupiter teaches through exploration and touching and giving you what you want and letting you play in it. That's how Jupiter teaches. Mercury, being in Aquarius is the blueprint. It's the blueprint of our ideal life. It's the blueprint of our dreams. It's the blueprint of how we do the world, how we do our world, our little world. That's Aquarius. So right now we're being asked to expand our blueprint to fit what we're finding with the moon, gaining that power back, gaining that emotional stability and emotional power back through Capricorn, and then that detachment. We're getting asked to revise and rethink our blueprint now that Venus has given closure to the wound of separation and moved now and also given the truth. Remember, Sagittarius is also truth. The truth about the fact that we aren't really even separated, and now is moving into Capricorn to now build something new, to build a structure to house this expanded being that we want to be. So that's what's happening with Mercury sextile Jupiter. It's like expanding our minds to fit this new blueprint that we have as we get more and more and more and more empowered to act and build and use that will, the gift of the will of our power to act on our own behalf that we just got from Pluto and Mars squaring. Like, that's that Jupiter sextile Mercury right there. Like, it's expanding our thinking to include all of these new influences that are coming in, and all of this is happening during the dark moon. So what I'm saying is, seed this as intention. Dark moon is gestation, seeding time. Seed it as intention, because the new moon is coming around 4:30 p.m. Eastern time on Monday. And the new moon is when the sun and the moon line up together, consciousness, unconsciousness, and they come together and we have a moment of fusion. We come together in ourselves in a new way. Aquarius is the blueprint. Aquarius is our ideal. We are being asked to rethink the blueprint of our lives from a place of empowerment, from a place of expansiveness, from a place of freedom. We get to choose what we do. We are the creators of our own existence. That's what that Leo lunar eclipse was about 2 weeks ago. We get to create what we want in our lives. So we have to go through all the South Node stuff to get to the point where it's like, oh, I can make a decision. Like, I can really revise everything about my life right now. So that's what we're being asked to do. Revise and come to a place of oneness about what we want. Come together within ourselves. There can be no more, well, maybe this and maybe that, and maybe if they, and maybe if I get this, and no, it can't be that anymore. It has to be a one unified front. Uranus rules Aquarius. Uranus is coming to the end of the time in Aries right now, where we have been asked to individuate and kind of enlighten our being. Aries is the sign of the individual as it pertains to the framework of the group. Aries, like I said, is the sign of the individual bursting out with will, the will of the individual. So right now, and Mars is coming up on Aries. They're basically conjuncting as we speak, but it won't be finished for a couple weeks. So what's happening is that will to create, that will to act, Uranus is like fusing all of that. So we're in a place of like aligning our will with what it is that we actually want to build through our blueprint. Mercury, during this new moon, will be conjunct Black Moon Lilith. Now, Black Moon Lilith is not an actual planet. It's a point in the sky that has energetic, I believe, I am of the school that Black Moon Lilith used to actually be one of Earth's moons and somehow got destroyed, but that the energy is still there. A lot of astrologers think that Black Moon Lilith is about, repressed sexuality, shadow stuff, and I disagree with all of that. I do think that, obviously there is a shadow side because Black Moon Lilith has a lot to do with rage, but after having spent a lot of time talking to Lilith throughout December, what I was shown was that Lilith is the archetype of truth. And what happens when our truth is not reflected back to us in kind. The rage that happens when something goes against our essential truth, against a higher truth. And if the story of Lilith was just basically, just kind of summarized, because I'm going to be running out of time soon, is that she was the first wife of Adam and before Eve in the Garden of Eden, and she refused to lie under Adam during sex. Well, basically so she flew off in a huff and then was said to mate with demons and blah, blah, blah. And was basically demonized for owning her truth because she was like, nah. After talking to her last month, what I saw was that it was literally the story. It says right there, she did not want to lie under Adam. She was not going to accept the lie that she was any less equal than Adam. She was not going to accept the lie that she had to be submissive to Adam. She was not going to accept the lie that the female essence is any less than the masculine. And that's the lie that she refused to accept. And she's where we protect our truth with rage. So this could be a time when we are having to face some really hard truths, and the anger and the distortion and stuff that comes from that. Or it can just literally be that we're finally ready to tell the fucking truth about what we're doing and what we really want. Remember, this is Aquarius. It's the blueprint. It's detached thinking. It's not really caring about how we feel right now. Even the moon's there. So there's detachment. This is facts. And the facts are this, and this. It does not make me happy. I want to change it. So it could literally just be facing a really hard truth with this new moon, and not just with the day. The new moon starts an entire 4-week cycle, and this is going to play out over the next 4 weeks. So it won't just be like, oh, Monday, like this is what's happening. It's going to play out. So we're going to be facing some truths, and they're going to be, it might be hard, but it will be good because they are essential to us. They are essential to getting us where we want to be and the lives that we want to be living. They're essential truths for us. The other aspect that's happening during the new moon is that Saturn will be sextile Neptune. So Saturn is in Capricorn, where it rules. And Saturn is the archetype of structure. And ruling Capricorn, the structures that we stand upon to be in our power. It's where we stand in our power. We have to have a structure to stand on to be in our power. We have to stand on our feet in our power. So Saturn's there, and Neptune is in Pisces, also home sign. Neptune rules our dreams, also our illusions, where we get caught up in victim mentality and potentially lying to ourselves. But it's also creativity and dreams and interconnectedness and all of these things. So this sextile, once again, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to make your dreams reality. It's an opportunity to make your dreams a reality, to structure your blueprint, because actually the sun and the moon are right in between Saturn in Capricorn and Neptune in Pisces. The sun and the moon are exactly at 15 degrees Aquarius. Saturn's at 15 Capricorn, and Neptune is at 15 Pisces. So Aquarius, the new moon is exactly in the middle of that. So it's really, really important that we understand that we can seed our dreams into the blueprint of this new moon. We have the power and the opportunity to begin the process of creating and manifesting what it is we want, but we have to do that through our blueprint in Aquarius with this new moon. The other thing is that Mars in Aries will be sextile. It's another opportunity aspect. Lilith and Mercury in Aquarius during this new moon. That sextile is going to be giving us the opportunity to align our will with the truth of our blueprint, and also begin to break us out of situations and things and relationships and whatever we're in that is not aligned with the truth of what it is that we actually want. It's a time for us to really be mindful and direct our energies toward what it is that we actually want. There can't be any more, like I said before, there can't be any more, well, maybe if this thing lines up and this thing happens. We have to be aligned with the blueprint that we want. We all carry a blueprint within us. Like I said about, whether it's the blueprint of your like how you want to be and live in your life, the kind of partner you want, the kind of home you want to live in, the kind of, work you want to do. We all have a blueprint and an ideal and a dream that we carry and that we hold. And a lot of those parts of that blueprint are very essential to us. They're very true for us. But at the same time, because when we look at the world through a disempowered view, we begin to modify our blueprint based on that disempowered thinking. And right now, we're really being called to revisit what it is we want from the lens of empowerment, from the lens of being able to have what we want and allow things to happen for us without getting in the way and standing in the way and, saying that it can't happen because, it hasn't happened before and look and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I'm like, believe me. So it's a time when we have to begin to look at the world differently. Our worldview is about to expand and change shape and begin to take on different parameters and expand, which brings me to our next and final aspect for the week, which is Mercury sextile Jupiter, I believe. Let me just make sure before I start saying these things. Bring me to our next episode of Mercury sextile Jupiter. And that will be on, not Mercury. Oops, sorry. That's why I was like, I think that already happened. It's happening Sunday. It's Sun sextile Jupiter, excuse me. Our final aspect of Sun sextile Jupiter. The Sun will be sextiling Jupiter pretty much in the same place as Mercury sextiling Jupiter on Sunday, the 3rd. And when the Sun meets with Jupiter and also Lilith, because the Sun will be right next to Lilith as well. Lilith is truth. Sagittarius is truth. Lilith is the truth against our essential nature. Sagittarius is higher truth. So the Sun will be lighting up the parts of our blueprint that are out of truth, that are out of alignment with our truth. And that opportunity from Jupiter is to allow that expanded thinking, to allow the expanded worldview, to allow the expanded vision to align our blueprint with not just our own internal truth, but the truth of our higher purpose and our higher existence, which is what Sagittarius also rules. So there could be another rub because this lunation, this new moon, and the whole process of this new moon, I keep getting that it's all about the truth. It's about the truth coming out, the truth of what we want, the truth of who we are, the truth of where we want to be, the truth of who we want to be with, the truth of everything. If we allow it, that truth will set us free. That's what this is about. It's literally the truth will set you free. It's about freedom. It's about truth, and it's about empowerment and standing firm in your truth and getting ready to take the reins of a co-creator in your own life and orchestrating it on your own terms. Obviously, like I always keep saying, with others that provide you and reciprocate the love and the security and the nurturing and the attention that you give and that you desire, that you seek, because the node of evolution is in Cancer. That's where everybody's focus is. That's kind of like our little honing signal. Everything has to align with what makes us secure without taking our power from us. Everything has got to align with our security and our empowerment in check. And that's where we are leaving off this week. I also want to, before signing off on all of this, the tarot card for the week, the tarot energy that aligns with this particular week and new moon's energy is the Six of Swords, or the Six of Air. Swords are the suit of air, and they deal with our intellect and our mental processes. Once again, I will reiterate, we cannot have intellect and mental processes without some kind of emotional intelligence, because otherwise we don't process. A lot of tarot readers just kind of take emotion out of the swords, and that is not possible. We can't have intellect without emotions. So it is a card. Sixes are cards of reciprocity. They are cards of as above, so below. And the Six of Swords in the Rider-Waite deck is shown by somebody being kind of ferried away from a situation on a boat. And I read from the Thoth deck, and that card is called Science. And it's a card in the Golden Dawn of Mercury in Aquarius. Mercury, once again, is our intellect, our thought processes, how we learn, how we communicate. And Aquarius is the sign of the blueprint. It's detachment. So the Six of Swords is the card that kept coming up for this time with me, and I wanted to pass that along because this really is about gaining perspective in our processes, kind of allowing our emotions to take a little bit of a back seat, because when we deal with the truth, it's not about emotions. Emotions make us subjective to things that we might not change otherwise. We need to take a more objective view, which is what the Six of Swords is asking us to do. Take an objective view and survey the scene, and it will take you where you'll be able to see where you need to go from that place, because you'll be able to see the landscape. And it's about lining up what's below and what's above in your mind, letting the two parts of your mind come together and fuse in a new way. So letting your right brain and left brain come together, letting your creativity and your intellect come together, like your rational and your irrational parts. That's what this card is about. And when that happens, your mind is more whole. It's settled. It's in a state of balance. That's what sixes are. The universe works on reciprocity. And when we have reciprocity, there is always balance. There's always balance when there's reciprocity. So this is the mark of a balanced mind. Your intellect will be balanced. Use this card to help you balance your intellect with your feelings, balance your intellect with, what you want, and let that take you where you need to be. Let let it inform your blueprint. This is the card of the blueprint. It's the card of assessing the blueprint and being able to understand it and work it in your own mind and think about it and add to it and revise it as needed. So with that, I want to thank you all for listening and wish you all the absolute best week. If anyone is interested in booking a private reading or consultation, please feel free to visit my website, elementsandalchemy.com. And also follow me on Instagram at Elements and Alchemy. And I think that is about it. I really, really look forward to hanging out next week and talking some more Astro and Tarot. So enjoy the next 7 days. Love to you all. Talk to you next week.